All right, welcome back to our post-debate coverage. I'm Mike Slater. If you are just screaming at the television, waiting to sound off as well, I hear you. And the whole country will hear you on our show tomorrow on SiriusXM Patriot, which we simulcast right here on the First, which is live. So starting at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. The show starts at 6, but simulcast starts at 7 to 9. Feel free to call in. We're going to be taking your calls for the entire 2 hours. Can't wait to hear what you have to think about what happened. It is pretty surreal what happened just then, and to watch the Democrats freak out. The Front of Drudge report right now, who hates Trump, the Front of Drudge, Operation Replace Biden, Dems scrambled 130 days to go, debate catastrophe, clips of Joy Reid on MSNBC, says my phone never stopped buzzing throughout. The universal reaction was approaching panic. The CNN King guy, whatever, there's a very aggressive panic in the Democratic Party, started minutes into the debate. They thought his performance was dismal. Of course, it was. Josh Hammer is here, our friend. Josh, what host of America on Trial, I should say, with Josh Hammer as well. What was that? What's your take, Josh?
You know, Mike, what is there to say? I mean, that debate was over 60 to 90 seconds in. I mean, literally, as soon as Joe Biden opened his mouth, that debate was over. And, you know, it wasn't just the fact that Joe Biden was clearly a man who has lost his mental and physical faculties. He was not just a man who looks like a corpse who is going to keel over and die on stage at any given second. It was clearly all of that. But Donald Trump, certainly for the first half of the debate, the second half of his performance was not quite as good. It was still fine. But the first half of the debate for Donald Trump was exceptional. It was the most laser-focused, substantive I have ever seen Donald Trump ever, literally in any political debate ever since that first Republican primary debate back in August of 2015, the infamous one where he had the exchange with Megyn Kelly and all of that. This was the absolute best I have ever seen Donald Trump in a debate. You know, it's funny, Mike, I actually thought that CNN was trying to put the fix in by muting the microphones. I think a lot of people thought this, that they were trying to boost Biden and hurt Trump because Trump obviously has more energy. He has more personality. We all remember that debate from September 2020 where Trump would kind of butt in and jump in on the microphone. So I thought the fix was in. I actually now think, having just watched what I just watched, that the muting microphone thing worked really well for Trump because it forced him to actually focus and dial in. And he was a master of that. His answer on abortion, which was kind of their gotcha issue, but his answer was fantastic. I mean, he honestly could not have answered that question any better. He had a lot of swinging punches on the immigration issue, but the focus obviously is going to be not on Trump, but on Joe Biden. And it's just been absolutely glorious, Mike, in these 15, 20 minutes. I've been flipping through CNN, MSNBC. I mean, everyone is just melting down. I have never seen anything like this. It's really crazy.
Okay, so I have so much to talk about. I the conspiracy theory part of me thought that it was interesting that they were having this debate so early. And now the obvious thought, you know, the Occam's razor is, well, they did it early because they really need to shake up the race now. Why wait till October? They have no time to waste. Okay. But there was always that little bit of me. It was like, maybe this is a big thing of sabotage. Maybe they're setting him up now before the convention so that they can throw in the Gavin Newsome. I don't know. But Gavin Newsom's backstage, and Gavin Newsom's good. And they put him in the race. It's a totally different deal than obviously what we just saw right now. First of all, do you think that's possible? And what are the Democrats' legal options at this point?
So this has obviously been an internal debate that many people have been having, like in their conversations, their group chats. I mean, I've been having this debate with friends for over a year now. You know, will Joe Biden be their nominee? And for over a year, my stance has been, yes, he's going to be the nominee. In fact, I actually just wrote my weekly syndicated column literally on that about a month ago. Probably literally less than a month ago, maybe. It might have been 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's very recently I wrote that column. I now feel kind of silly, and I feel like I might have been eating crow a little bit now because my argument, which made a lot of sense, Mike, and I still don't think it's a foregone conclusion, but the basic argument, just to spell it out for all the viewers here, is Joe Biden is very bad, yes, but Kamala Harris, who you would logically replace him with as the vice president, is even worse. And you can't leapfrog Kamala Harris without alienating a lot of black and minority voters who, by the way, they're actually already alienating. This new New York Times Siena poll has 25 to 26% of black voters voting for Trump, which is an astronomical number right now. So the basic argument is that they're in between a rock and a hard place, and they really just can't do it. But having said all of what I just said, after watching that debate, after watching that particular performance just now, my God, I mean, what the Democrats simply, they can't do this. I mean, not only is it elder abuse, it is abuse of the Democratic Party itself, a party that I don't particularly claim to have any sympathy for. But this is a major political party putting someone up there who, over the course of this hour, 45-minute debate or so, I don't think he had a single sentence that he said with lucidity, with coherence, and with factual accuracy. I literally don't think a single sentence that he uttered all evening actually fit all three of those criteria. And they're having those conversations now in real time. But I know that if I were Michelle Obama, for example, right now, I would be eagerly awaiting my phone call because it is not too late. They have not formally nominated a candidate yet. That's not happening for another almost 2 months now. It's not happening until August in Chicago. They definitely have the time to make a swap if they want to. Again, it's really just a question here as to whether Joe Biden will actually do it on his own, because short of making him accidentally, quote unquote, fall down a long flight of stairs or something like that, like an old Hillary Clinton trick from back in Arkansas, short of something like that, they don't really have a whole lot of options other than for him to step aside. So he'll have to actually make that decision himself.
Wow. Producer Matt, if you can find the clip, I saw it during the last break, it was a CNN feed that was still going on. And Jill walked up to the podium and had to escort Joe away from the podium. That's one of those clips, right? Like the other day at that fundraiser in LA with Biden leading him off the stage. That's one of those damning clips. You're like, oh man, wow, that's horrible. Is it true, Josh, as we one more question down this road, that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they're not in the Constitution, right? So they're just private clubs who can nominate whoever the heck they want. Like, and that we go through like this whole rigmarole with voting and the delegates and this, but like whatever, like they could just change the rules of their club, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There is absolutely there's nothing in the Constitution about political parties. There's only one amendment in the entire Constitution. It's actually the amendment pertaining to the poll tax. It was, what is it, the 23rd or 24th Amendment? It's right there in the 1960s. That's actually the only clause in the entire Constitution that makes reference to a primary process that even alludes to the fact that there are political parties. But basically the entire Constitution, I should say, is written in totally nonpartisan fashion. So, the parties can do what they want. Now, every state has their deadline for having a nominee solidified. So, for example, the state of Ohio actually has been having this back and forth with the Democratic Party because the state of Ohio, under current Ohio law, requires that the nominee be solidified in a date prior actually to the convention in Chicago. But the Democrats were already trying to find some way around that. They were going to call an emergency session in Ohio. They're working on the options. But the point is, they can do it. There is nothing that is stopping them from pulling the old switcheroo at this point in the convention. I just didn't think that it would happen as a matter of the politics, the law aside there. But I increasingly think that it is entirely plausible.
That's going to be wild. The next couple of days here are going to be so amazing, and we're living right in the middle of it. So it's surreal because Biden was at Camp David for a week, right? The heavy, intense debate prep. There were like a bunch of guys there, I'm sure. Ron Klain, all these others who were doing the mock debates and the prep and the reading, they had to have known what was going to happen today. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way they're like, wow, Biden is crushing it. And then what happened tonight, they're like, oh, I can't believe it. He was doing so well yesterday. They had to have known what they were setting him up for, and they just knew there was no way out of it. I can't wait to get those tell-alls.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching just like a train crash happen in very, very slow, like painfully slow time, right? I mean, if you have like a bird's eye view and you watch these two freight trains coming together, like, it's going to crash, it's going to be horrible, but you can't do anything about it. I imagine that's what it's been like for Ron Klain and all the other inner circle Biden people over the past few days. But, Mike, as soon as the debate was over, I put right on CNN and, Van Jones, I mean, he almost cried. I mean, that guy was almost breaking down the tears. He was like, I love Joe Biden. I'm speaking from the heart here, but like, man, like that was like really hard to watch. And, I guess kudos for being honest. I mean, that's kind of the real question, right? I mean, like, is the New York Times, the Washington Post, are all the organs, the mainstream media going to try to do a mop-up operation here over the next 24 to 48 hours? We saw this headline that came up curiously about an hour into the debate. We saw this new headline. Biden's sources say that he has a cold. I don't know if you saw that, but like that was like the talking point for the final 30 minutes of the debate was that, oh, he has a cold. Well, first of all, no, he doesn't. You're lying through your teeth. Second of all, even if he did have a cold, that's not what someone with a cold sounds like. You have the sniffles. You have to like blow your nose, whatever. You don't sound like you're dying. I mean, it's a very different thing there. So, based on what I've seen thus far, we're literally in the first hour here post-debate, but based on what I've seen thus far, I actually don't think that they're going to go full attempted mop-up operation. I think at this point, they're coming to the realization in rapid time here that their best plan is to go all in to convince him to drop off the ticket. That's what we're seeing thus far. I don't know. I think it'll stick, but it's a crazy world, Mike. I mean, we're finding it all out in real time, I guess.
Man. We'll do another day on this. We'll do another day on this because, like, if you're rooting for Donald Trump, you want Joe Biden to stay in the race. And having spent so much time in California, I know that my message to America is that Gavin Newsome is good. I mean, he's not wicked, but he's slick at what he does. And I don't think we want to go against Gavin Newsome. That's a whole different race because that takes age off the table and all this stuff, right? So you didn't want Biden to have a stroke tonight. Right, but you wanted it to be bad enough where people are like, oh, this is not good, we can't vote for him. So maybe it towed that line good enough. The only spin I can think that they could possibly do out of this is something like, man, that really was an embarrassment for America. Both are so bad, and well, you gotta go for the guy who's not an insurrectionist, huh? Like that's the best I could think they could do is they have to admit that Joe is an embarrassment, but like try to rope Trump into that thing as well. Is that something?
Yeah, I mean, they basically tried that tonight. I mean, they basically tried to do the whole January 6th thing. I mean, they went for Charlottesville, for God's sake. I mean, they tried to do the whole like very, very fine people on both sides. This talking point that has been debunked. I mean, last I checked, probably 10 to 20,000 times. I mean, it's just not true. It's simply not true that Donald Trump said the thing that they say that he said, but they do it anyway. I mean, they're basically running on, quote unquote, our democracy, on the fact that Donald Trump is a, quote unquote, convicted felon, and on the fact that he is someone who is allegedly going to ban all abortions in America, even though his explicit stance is that the federal government is going to have nothing to do with him, which, by the way, is not my preferred stance as a staunch pro-lifer, but it's political reality. It kind of is what it is right now. But that's what they're forced to run on. I mean, they are forced to kind of run on these particular issues that have no particular relevance to the median independent voter, because on literally every issue down the line, all the issues that voters say are the ones that they care about the most, which essentially are the economy, inflation, immigration, and crime. You see that over and over and over again in every poll. On all of those issues, each and every one, Joe Biden is catastrophically underwater, and the American people say that they trust Donald Trump more than they trust Joe Biden. So what alternative do they have other than to do the whole January 6th, you're a convicted felon thing? Now, Donald Trump could have punched back a little harder, I will say, on the lawfare. In fact, I was hoping that he would. I was slightly disappointed that he did not, because all he had to do, Mike, was actually just look right at the camera and say, look, you want to talk about our democracy? There is one person on this debate stage whose Department of Justice is prosecuting and attempting to incarcerate the political opponent. And oh, by the way, it's not me, it's the other guy. And oh, by the way, that guy also tried to deprive me of the ballot in all 50 states. An argument that, by the way, lost 9-0 at the U.S. Supreme Court, thank goodness.
Yes, that's right.
So, I would have liked to have heard that, but, perhaps he'll make that point in some campaign rally or something.
Yeah. Josh Hammer, host of the podcast America on Trial. Please go listen to it. Josh, great to talk to you, man. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.